Greetings. Welcome to our Red Short webinar for this Wednesday, April 20th, 2022. My name is JD Thomason. I'm an analyst with Red Sky Alliance, and I will be guiding you through a short discussion of Wormable software vulnerabilities today. As always, you can find more information on related topics at redskyalliance.org. So here is the agenda for today. First, we'll provide a little bit of information on what sort of updates were included in this month's Microsoft Security Updates. As I've noted here, this is arguably the largest set of security updates in nearly 2 years. With that volume of updates in mind, we can expect to find some noteworthy CVE mentions in the list of updates. We'll focus on perusing higher priority updates, and we'll try to discover any linkages between them. After that, we'll highlight an update that references a vulnerability that could be considered wormable. From here, we'll give a brief overview of a few aspects of wormable vulnerabilities to get an idea of just what that means. And lastly, we'll highlight some mitigation strategies that can be used in cases where wormable vulnerabilities exist. Last week, Microsoft released security patches for over 100 vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities were spread across many products like Skype, Power BI, Visual Studio, and the .NET framework. Many of them, in fact, were focused on Windows-centric applications, like the Windows Installer, File Explorer, PowerShell, Defender, Feedback Hub, and things like that. And in my personal experience, I actually had to reset my power settings. So if you've updated recently, be sure to take a gander at that. 10 of these updates were listed as being critical. Specifically, these updates were addressing remote execution vulnerabilities in products like Hyper-V, LDAP, and SMB. We'll highlight one of these soon due to it being wormable, and we'll be explaining that shortly also. Aside from the critical CVEs, there was also one vulnerability listed as being publicly known at the time of release, and yet another vulnerability listed as being currently being exploited. Now, the wormable CVE that we're going to focus on today is CVE 2022-26809. And this one has a very high security rating of CVSS 9.8, and it actually has to do with the RPC runtime library. This runtime library allows applications to use the RPC protocol for communications and will generally be seen in client-server type applications and distributed systems. The update we're focused on fixes potential integer and buffer overflow mechanisms in the library file, which, prior to the update, could have allowed data to be written out of bounds to the heap and result in remote code execution. Microsoft's official mitigation recommendation for this vulnerability is that you should block TCP traffic on port 445 at the enterprise perimeter level. This unfortunately leaves systems within the perimeter open to attack, but at the very least, it's a good start. The most worrying aspect of this vulnerability is that the exploitation can take place without any interaction and can potentially go unnoticed by users or security staff. This is what makes this vulnerability wormable. Now, the idea of a vulnerability being wormable means that the software can be introduced to an environment such that it is able to self-replicate and begin affecting systems that were not exposed to the initial attack. Basically, this means that if a single system on a network is affected, then the other systems around this one infected system on the network are now at risk for exploitation. And the term wormable also often implies that the process will take place without any user interaction. But it's also worth noting here that this specific trait is also referred to as zero-click. So Cisco proposes that there are 4 steps to mitigating worm attacks. 1 being containment, 2 being inoculation, 3 being quarantine, and 4 being treatment. Containment refers to the process of determining which systems may be affected and trying to isolate them from the rest of the environment. Once containment is complete, systems in the network should be scanned and patched. During the quarantine step, infected systems should be removed from the network if possible, or if it's not possible, we should try to, at the very least, try to block them from being able to access other systems. And during the treatment step, infected systems should be cleaned and patched. Unfortunately, this may occasionally require complete system reinstallations in order to do this properly. So let's wrap this up. We discussed a little bit about Microsoft's April 2022 security updates and how it is one of, if not the biggest group of patches in 2 years. We highlighted that this pack of updates included patches for 10 critical vulnerabilities, including one of which that was Wormable. We gave a brief overview of the vulnerability in question and that this patch was addressing, along with a quick definition of what it means for a vulnerability to be wormable. Lastly, we highlighted a 4-step process from Cisco on how to mitigate and respond to worm attacks. And with all of that, we have reached the end. That is all for today. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed the material and found it useful. If you have any further questions on the subject, you can contact us via Jim McKee at jmckee@wapaclabs.com. If you are not currently a Red Sky Alliance member yet, please go sign up on our portal at redskyalliance.org. Membership is free, and it will give you access to a variety of Red Sky Alliance content. Have a nice day, and we hope to see you again next week.